Okay, so today we're going to be learning least common multiple. Last week we did greatest common factor, so they usually go together. You see them kind of together all the time. You've done least common multiple before, so this should just be a review. And we're on page 609, so if you could just follow along with me, we're on page 609. It says a multiple of a number is the product of the number and any other whole number. For example, 0, 1, 2, 3, 4, etc. Multiples that are shared by two or more numbers are common multiples, and the least common multiple, the LCM, is the least multiple other than 0 common to sets of multiples. So when we learned greatest common factor, those were the numbers that go into that number. For example, if I said, what are the factors of 6? You would say 1, 2, 3, and 6, because those numbers go evenly into the number 6. But now we're talking about least common multiple, which means they are multiples. You're going to multiply. Example number 1 says, Tom hits golf balls at the driving range every 3 days, practices putting every 4 days, and goes golfing every 6 days. If he did all 3 activities today, in how many days will he do all 3 activities again? So what you need to do here is you need to find the least common multiple of the numbers 3, 4, and 6 by listing all non-zero multiples of each number. Non-zero means you're not including the number 0. So for number 3, you're going to list multiples of 3. Multiples is pretty easy. So it's going to be like 3, 6, 9, 12, 15, 18, etc. Then you're going to list multiples of 4. Okay, 4, 8, 12, 16, 20, 24. And the last one is multiples of 6. 6, 12, 18, 24, 30. Okay, and you'll notice that the smallest, okay, now it's not the greatest one because we'd be, into infinities by then, but the smallest, the least common multiple, so the one that's common among all 3 of these digits over here, is going to be the number 12. So Tom will complete all 3 activities again in 12 days. Okay? In order to check, the number line shows on which days all 3 activities will be completed. So they said that he golfs so he goes to the driving range every 3 days. So it says driving range, and then driving range, and then driving range, driving range. So that was multiples of 3. He practices putting every 4 days. So the P is for putting, 4, 8, 12, and so on. And he goes golfing every 6 days. So that would be multiples of 6. G is for golf, 6, 12. You'll notice that all 3 of these end up on the number 12. Okay, that's the smallest number that they end up on again. You could turn the page to example number 2. Now, just like we did greatest common factor, there's always a second way to do things. Okay, again, I think that this way might be a little bit more difficult instead of just listing out multiples. But if you feel like you love factor trees and you want to do it this way, that's fine with me too. So they wanted you to find the least common multiple of 15 and 40. If you were to list them out, you would do 15, 30, 45, and just continue that. 45, 60, 75, continue. You'll notice that the numbers are getting pretty big because the multiples of 40, they start at 40, and then it goes to 80, and then it goes to 120 and 160. So now your numbers are starting to get pretty big. So that's why sometimes prime factorization might be the best way to do it. The prime factorization of 15 is just 3 times 5. The prime factorization of 40 would be 2 times 2 times 2 times 5. Okay? Step number 2. They want you to find the common prime factors. So like we said before, 15 was 3 times 5, and 40 was 2 times 2 times 2 times 5. The only common prime factor would be this number 5. There's a 5 here and there's a 5 here. There's no other number that is common. So the only common prime factor is going to be 5. Step number 3 says find the product. Product means to multiply of the prime factors using each common prime factor only once and any remaining factors. Okay, so what you would do is you would do 2 times 2 times 2. We use those 3. times 3, because we have a 3 up here, and then times 5. The reason that we only did one of the 5s instead of this one and this one is because you use each common prime factor only once. When you multiply these 5 numbers together, you end up getting 120. Okay? Again, if this way is easier for you, feel free to do it this way. But just be careful with the multiplication, because that's where it gets a little bit tricky. Sometimes you have a long row of numbers like this, and it gets a little tricky. Okay, now we're looking at the next page, at the bottom of the page, guided practice. Find the least common multiple of each set of numbers. So you're going to list out the multiples of 6, 12, 18, 24, 30, and the multiples of 10, which is super easy, 10, 20, 30, 40, 50, 60, and so on. The smallest, the least common multiple of 6 and 10, you'll notice, is going to be the number 30. We have a 30 here, and we have 30 here. And there's no other matches before the number 30. So our smallest match is going to be 30. List the least common multiple for the numbers 3 and 4. 3, 6, 9, 12. 4, 8, 12. Sometimes when you just say it to yourself, you realize it right away without even listing them. So like I said, 3, 6, 9, 12. Then I stopped because I knew that 4 also goes into 12. So I did 4, 8, 12. The least common multiple of 3 and 4 is 12. Okay? Now you can do independent practice. You could do problem solving on your own. And you could do my homework pages 613 and 614. Again, this is all about least common multiples, so just continue to list out those multiples and find the smallest match. Okay, if you have any questions, please ask me.